Hello, stress management crew. This is lecture 15. It's Professor and Counselor Rob Alexander. We're going to go ahead and launch into um, our lecture number 15, which has to do with diversity. Right? Chapter outline: diverse populations, health status, poverty and educational level, family life, age and physical challenges, and sexual orientation. Now, this is just kind of scratching the surface on these topics. We have many classes at our community college that deal with the study of diversity. These are our intercultural studies courses. If you want to take a deep dive, intercultural studies or any of our ethnic study classes. We also have classes that deal with family life through our child development department. Right, and then of course I am the instructor for human sexuality. So sign up for Huma 20 with me or one of my colleagues that teaches, Huma 10, human sexuality. So again, this is just surface level, scratching the surface. You're welcome as you are becoming informed learners to take a deeper dive on any of these topics. Race and ethnicity. So race. So it's a group of people with similar physical traits, blood types, genetic patterns, and inherited characteristics. And I will say this: race is a social construct, right? Because 99.9% of the of people that are born are the same. Okay, I'm going to say that again. We are the same, right? The only thing that differentiates many of us is our pigmentation in our skin. Okay, this is the human race that we're talking about. So ethnicity is referred to a group of people having a common heritage based on what part of the world that you come from. Right? And this has to also ties into customs, characteristics, language, and history. Take some time, pause, figure 15.1, the United States population between 2014 and 2016. Now you can see prior to 2014, it was predominantly white. Projected population is going to be predominantly ethnic. With Hispanic being 28.6, African American 14.3, American Indian 2.4, and Alaskan Native 2.4. Right, so this is projected by 2016 that this will change. When we talk about diverse populations, but this is not limited to, right? There's many different ethnicities and groups: African Americans, Hispanics, Asians, American Indian, Alaskan Natives, elderly. Then we're going to also talk about the LGBTQ community. This is not limited. This is limited to just the ethnicities that this particular chapter is highlighting, but Asian Americans have contributed to acupuncture, herbal medicines, relaxation techniques such as meditation, respectful authority, the value of education, self-discipline, and a sense of responsibility towards the elderly. Right there, and there is just a long list of contributions from the Asian community. So I highly recommend taking an Asian American Studies course that we have at UNZ. And this can be found whether it's in the Ethnic Studies Department or in our ICS, Intercultural Studies. Right? So contributions from Native Americans are typically connected to holism, where the emphasis is placed on balance, spiritual, physical, emotional, and social aspects to remain healthy, with harmony with others and with the universe. Concern for the environment. Contributions of Latinos and Hispanic Americans. This is not limited to in terms of the totality, but this particular chapter focuses on the value of social and family support, importance of family and extended family, social support, reliance, and protection, spiritual aspects of health. The church is a resource during stressful times. Right? Culturally, many Hispanics will utilize that church as a refuge, a place to go for healing. African American contributions, but not limited to the importance of church, social, emotional, and financial support, community service, value placed on enjoying one's life, sports, arts, and social interaction, right? Plus a long list of contributions. We have African American Studies courses at the end if you want to take a deeper dive. Now, let's look at problems faced by minorities: poor health, poverty, low educational levels, right? Infant mortality, right? Crime and violence. Stressors challenging minorities, racism, cultural conflicts, acculturation stressors. Acculturation is a fancy term meaning having to assimilate. So if you come from South America, as a Hispanic person, you have to assimilate to cultural norms that are not in sync with your own. And that is a stressor when you go to a school and you don't study how you would have studied in South America. You don't study how we would have studied in Africa. And oftentimes, Native Americans will meet in circles as opposed to having an instructor in front of the classroom, right? And the things that minority can experience throughout a lifespan will be racial profiling, hate crimes, and violence. So racism, this is belief that one's own race is superior to another's race. The health effects include stroke and heart attack, right? Just this constant bombardment of racism throughout a lifespan can also lead to high blood pressure, cancer, low birth weight in babies, respiratory problems, self-rated health, mental health, chronic health conditions. Cultural conflicts have to do with the need to fit in when someone leaves one's culture and enters into another. Just think about somebody that suddenly moves into California and they're coming from China, right? They're coming from a different part of Asia, and now they have to assimilate to American standards in order to thrive and be successful. It is very challenging and stressful. New cultural standards may be at odds with the norms and values of the native culture. So when we talk about acculturation, stressor, entering a new culture requires adaptation for everyone. Language barriers, employment difficulty. We are all immigrants from somewhere else, unless you were born Native American. Children acculturate faster than parents. Racial profiling, crime, and violence. The hate crime. A hate crime is a crime against people based on their race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, or religion. So some of these four-year colleges, they are hanging nooses in trees. They are targeting minorities because they are the dominant culture at that particular four-year college. This is an ongoing thing. And I think hate crimes should be outlawed, should be banned, and folks that enact hate crimes should be punished by law to the highest degree. Health disparities, a particular type of health difference that is closely linked with a social, economic, and/or environmental disadvantage. Right? It adversely affects groups of people who have systematically experienced greater obstacles to health based on characteristics historically linked to discrimination or exclusion. The national health objectives include achieving health equity, eliminating disparities, and improving the health of all groups, seeking health equality for Americans of different races and ethnicities, and sexual identity and orientation, disability status, and geographic location. The death of infants before 1 year of age. So the rate for whites is 4.9 per 1,000. The rate for African Americans is 11.3 per 1,000. For Hispanic, it's 5 per 1,000. So you see the disparity, right? This is a racial thing. Okay, this is a racial health emergency. Why are there more black infants dying per 1,000 than there are white? Sometimes this is due to the high cost. Sometimes it's due to the inability to afford better medical care or a premium health care. Sometimes it's lack of health insurance. Sometimes it's racism within the hospital setting. All of these play a part in mortality. Life expectancy in years of potential life loss. Right? So life expectancy, the number of years a person is expected to live at his or her birth. The years of potential life loss. The number of years between when a person is expected to live and the age of death. A measure of premature death. Right? Those health implications. Higher incidence of high blood pressure in African Americans, the rates of HIV, human immunodeficiency virus infection vary greatly in subgroups of the population. Sometimes that's due to lack of education around it. Sometimes that's due to the lack of community resources to help with the spread of HIV and other STIs. Cancer death rates are significantly higher among African Americans. Suicide and homicide vary by ethnicity, gender, and cultural background. Poverty and educational level. So this is associated with poor health, lower socioeconomic levels result in poor health status. Women in general earn less than men and have fewer opportunities. Age and disability status affect employment opportunities. Factors related to stress: homelessness, family structure, stress of trying to afford the basics, one-parent families, poverty, the lower levels of education and job training and discrimination. Right? The needs of mixed race and international college students. So these are all factors related to stress, and homelessness as well as food insecurity can be a big stressor for college students because of all of these things that are listed on this particular slide. We'll talk about border crossing. The model of how mixed race students develop a sense of identity. Having both feet in both groups, being able to merge multiple perspectives simultaneously is a stressor. Situational ethnicity has to do with consciously switching between racial groups depending on the situation. Sitting on the border, adopting a multiracial perspective, being in a home base in one identity, but periodically becoming involved in others. Assisted mixed race students with identity stress in college, providing opportunity to explore race and ethnicity in courses and assigned projects, including courses, texts, and workshops that directly deal with mixed race experience. Exposes the myth of racial purity to students in any racial heritage. Right. So I've had students in my in-person stress management class. We'll have a panel discussion about diversity, right? And I'll invite students from all different types of several groups to speak to the class about the particular challenges that they've faced as an East Asian student, an international student, African American student, a Native American student, Pacific Islander, right? And I apologize if I missed anybody, but I've had representatives from the LGBTQ plus community talk about the challenges, right? And then sometimes in past quarters, I've had students volunteer for a day at a community assistance program where we'll look at an overview of that experience in the class, or sometimes I'll have them reflect that in the writing of an essay, right? Maybe about a year ago, I had a woman that was working in tech or other traditionally male occupations in the tech field, the tech world, construction management, and I had them talk about their experiences being a female in an occupation that was normally affiliated with men, right? On the flip side, I've had my male students write about being in the medical field or in the nursing field and how they felt and the stress that was accompanied with that particular career choice. So these are all giving you all perspectives and things to think about, right? I may have you all do a short description of your experience when you had a culture class, and that could be, some of you might say, "Oh, I've never had a culture class," but if you've ever traveled to a third world country, Southeast Asia, Thailand, Haiti, different parts of Africa, and you saw that the nationality and the culture that was involved there was very different than yours, and then you kind of have a lived experience in real time, right? Typically, try to have students write essays about, your self-esteem, self-efficacy in those moments, right? The effects of your locus of control takes place when you travel outside of your norm. But it also gives you a sense and an idea of how different cultures feel when they have to assimilate to America, right? The differences in health, the differences between in the life expectancy and death in different cultures, right? And the theories that are connected to that. What about that returning student that is dealing with ageism? I had students in my class in their 50s, 60s, right? And now they have to assimilate to students that are 17, 18, and 19 years old. And what are the perceptions that we make about older students or the returning students? And sometimes it's helpful just to get a better understanding of volunteering and being a big brother or a sister to help some of these communities and dealing with the welfare of those groups in some form or fashion. These are all ways we can kind of better get involved and just come together as a society as opposed to just focusing on the differences. Now, we have one of the largest international programs at De Anza College, and many they face unfamiliar culture and challenges. Some of them it is a significant adjustment, right? Cultural differences, language barriers, right? The perception to perform and succeed academically, not only within that classroom setting, by their peers, but sometimes by their family members, their parents, the quality of relationship with the faculty members. Sometimes that language barrier will take place, and that could affect their mental well-being. These are things to think about in terms of facing difficulty in seeking assistance from people who are not from their particular culture. Colleges can help by reaching out and creating assistance and mentoring programs. Now, we talked about how many of our elders come back to college to take a class, or this is the time in their life where they feel like they can get a degree because they have done what they could do in their career, or they may be looking for a career change, right? And they don't want to feel like a burden when they're in courses. So the increase in productivity years of the elders and the years of quality life, sometimes we can reduce the proportion of older adults who have moderate to severe functional limitations by providing support, by providing physical and mental challenges. So people suffer from the challenge of their condition and from discriminatory attitudes. The health objective increase the ratio of adults with disabilities, support sufficient social and emotional support. We can reduce the ratio of people with disabilities who report serious psychological distress, the sexual orientation and discrimination, right? This is specifically for the LGBTQ plus population, right? Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, right? Effects of gays, lesbians, and transgender. Incidence of hate crime is widespread in schools. That members of the LGBTQ plus sometimes are targeted, right? Harassment and violence have physical and emotional consequences. If you've ever been a victim of a hate crime, sometimes that mental toll that it takes on you doesn't leave. You think about that all the time. Sometimes there is post-traumatic stress associated with a hate crime. It could also lead to social alienation, low self-esteem, suicide, ideation, anxiety, and depression. Yeah. So we have covered a lot in this chapter. Again, you always have the opportunity to come back, think about some of the challenges that folks from different communities, different ethnicities, diversities are experiencing when we come to community college. One of the beautiful things about being a student at our particular community college is you have the opportunity to learn from different cultures and learn from different ethnicities, right? And then, but you also have the opportunity to change your perception and enhance your own thinking and learning connected to being in this world that is a melting pot and an infusion of different cultures. It's not monolithic. It's not. We're not just focusing. We don't just focus on one culture, but we focus on all. So this is lecture 15. Signing off.